going to all these stretch guys, the Porzingis types around the league, proves that there are places, there are pockets still where old school center types can make things happen in the NBA. You saw him out there with Boban Marjanovic.
Yeah.
These guys couldn't be any more or less stretchy as fives.
Yeah, and listen, at the end of the day, if you can play, you can play. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Listen, we'd all prefer you be able to do more and have more impact, and that's what these new wave bigs are able to do. When you look at guys like Embiid and Porzingis and Giannis, what makes them so special is that they have that back-to-the-basket center size, but they just can affect the game in so many more areas. Because remember, because of shooting now, the half court is so much bigger.
Right.
Meaning you have to cover so much more space. It's harder to defend. It's like covering a wide receiver in the open field without having some help. You know, you're just out there by yourself. He can go anywhere he wants. It's harder. And so you want guys with size and athleticism and great lateral quickness that can do more. But if you've got guys who can still be effective down low, dominating the paint, you can still have success on the basketball floor. Listen, Dwight Howard is having a bit of a resurgence with how well he's been playing with Charlotte this year. So there's always going to be a place for a good basketball player, which is why I'll be interested to see what happens with Jahlil Okafor.
Yeah.
I do assume at some point that deal's going to get done, and you're going to see him hopefully playing some meaningful basketball this season.
Really productive out of the post when he's gotten a chance to play. And Embiid does it both ways. He's not a great out three-point shooter, but, you know, proficient enough that you have to honor him out there. But he kills people out of the post.
Yeah, and anytime you average a double-double in this league, I think that's the one thing. You can say what you want about Dwight Howard, whether or not the NBA game has kind of passed his skill set by. Dwight's always been a double-double machine. Yeah. So it's like there are quality big men who can adapt to the new way that the game is played, but there are guys who play an old style that's still effective because they're going to be dominant. Like it'd be different if he was getting 5 rebounds a night, couldn't keep up with the action on the floor, and was being pulled out to the perimeter and a defensive liability night after night. I don't think that's the case. I would be really curious to see, boy, I wish we could get in some kind of simulated time machine with all this technology, just to see what some of the big men of a previous era would look like playing this style, like whose skills would have been able to adapt and whose game would have changed dramatically and been effective playing in that space you're talking about, GA, or out on the floor facing the basket. I always felt like Patrick Ewing was kind of ahead of his time in terms of being able to face up and shoot that jumper, you know, and play in that space on the floor. When I remember people used to complain about it, be like, man, he needs to go down and, you know, get back down there and dominate under the basket. Well, it's like the game was changing even then probably, and people didn't realize it. It'd be nice to know whose skills would have translated.
David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon would have been effective.
Yep.
Again, and part of it, too, though, it's not just their offensive skill. Like, I go back to this. Those guys could move, so they could play in space. You know, they could. Not that you're going to put Patrick on a small forward for 20 minutes, but a possession here, a possession there, he could go and guard that position. And so those guys, great players, can play and would have played in any era. You know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
in the days, just because, listen, the guy was just a great player. And again, a lot of what makes three-point shooting so valuable is that, from an analytical standpoint, okay, if I shoot 33% from three, I'm shooting 50 from the field.
Right.
Well, you know, some of those bigs, Shaq, they were shooting 60. So their two still is very much going to be important, right? Because they're going to shoot it at such an efficient rate that it would offset the offset, if you know what I mean.
Well, some of them from the post and in are shooting way higher than that. You know, you got to factor in all the desperation shots that everybody takes during the season into those twos.
Yeah.
Some of them, when they're in a comfort zone, back then, were shooting much higher percentages than even their field goal percentage.
I'll tell you another part about it that I love, and I think about DeMarcus Cousins. There are big men who can stretch it out beyond the three-point line. I think that makes the rest of his game more effective because he can. If you watch Cousins, he eats people alive off the dribble
because you have to go chase him out
because you got to chase him out to that line. He's still living on old, you know, the old style of what a big man can do, and just has accentuated it by being able to play.